everyone, welcome. Oi, is this year starting on the wrong foot? Well, not really, but hear me out. My laptop had been giving problems. Now it is not charging at all. I have been working on my daughter's little 4 gig RAM toy laptop, and now the software on that seems to have bombed. We've been battling, sharing this tiny little thing for work for weeks now, but finally and strangely, without us even complaining, or talking about our struggle, maybe just mentioning that we are sharing this little thing, a friend of my daughter's came and said they are just cleaning his daughter's old laptop, and then they will bring it so that at least we each have one to work from until I can afford to buy myself a bigger, better one. Basically, an hour after my daughter and I had to battle not to cry out of frustration after trying for nearly 24 hours to download a video which I had to cut about 5 or 6 times in an effort to make it a smaller file. I tell you, God can be good, or a good guy at some times. Anyway, my dear friends, we have a lot to go through, and seeing that we are not going to go anywhere to celebrate New Year, and we instead opted to get some ice cream, cool drink, and some salty snacks, I can just as well work my way through everything I received. But before I continue with Meghan and Harry and the things we know about, I just quickly want to give a bit of a rundown of the family. Chances are good we will be seeing a little less of Auntie Anne. She will continue her work with her charities and patronages, but there will definitely be less overseas trips, and she will no longer be available to stand in for any of the other senior royals. Her children and husband have finally convinced her to make more time for them and herself. Camilla will also likely step down from royal duties before the end of the year due to health issues. Whether true or not, I heard rumors about Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or dementia. This part may be pure fiction for all I know, but that she may or will step down due to her health, that part is certainly true. Charles is indeed looking better than he had in a long, long time, but I was told by a very, I can't stress how very reliable source that there is now another health issue which is indeed unrelated to his cancer, which in a way is currently almost a bigger concern. Although I think I read something between the lines, I think it would be semi-disgusting of me to speculate, and in all honesty, my source refuses to tell me what it is. But it will indeed affect his plans for 2026. And if he refuses to listen to his doctors, which he is at the moment, then it could hasten his demise. Anyway, so let's get back to Harry and Meghan. I'm going to start off by telling you what is happening in Harry's world. Well, at least work-wise. Harry has to do something, and he must be seen to do something, because number one, there's already too many questions about their finances and that of Archwell. Plus, he is a royal, and it is unlikely that the British public will take kindly to Pa supporting Harry and his offspring with British taxpayers' money, even if he is already doing it. At least we cannot prove it. But should it become obvious, it could very well cause an unwelcome stir. Number 2, I do believe that Pa could have told Harry that he will help him on condition that he returns to England and returns the favour. And again, here is why I think that way, and thank you to you know who you are, who did most of the research for me. But before we get into that, here is another rumour I heard. We are told that James Holt is returning to England, but I am told that his partner and their child returned to England a while ago already. The other thing is that I'm told that Charles had already helped with a new job for James Holt. We'll soon get more details on that, I'm told. It is also true that James Holt is still working for Travelist, or is at least still on the board of Travelist. Now, Travelist is being run from London, I believe. I'm also told that James Holt's departure was no secret and definitely no surprise because it had been negotiated since August or September. Now, what I'm going to tell you next is all allegedly for legal reasons and so forth. You all know the drill. The information is not from the internet, but the research I had to do to see whether I could somehow verify it is indeed from the public domain. And thank you again to you know who you are for doing most of the work. So let's continue. And just a warning, you are going to be hearing a lot of allegedlys and don't sue me allegedlys, and please note, I have no suicidal tendencies and ideations at this particular time, and I can swim very well. I do not drink, so the pond is not going to work for me either. Okay, now we know that the Queen put her tiny foot down and said half in, half out is out of the window and splattered like rotten egg on the cobblestones below. No way, Jose, and all that jazz. Bonnie Prince Charlie did not like it, and Harry was so surprised that he nearly vomited a hairball. No one had ever said no to him. And to top it all off, it was dear old Granny who said no to her darling grandson. Okay, but when the Queen passed, it was also the time when Harry and Meghan's marriage took its first serious knock. Harry blamed Meghan for not seeing Granny before she passed, and of course he was right to do so. Shortly after returning to California, Harry tried to come to some agreement with Charles about working for the monarchy, but not in the monarchy. Because it was too soon after the Queen's death to defy her orders, Charles came up with the idea to make Harry like a general ambassador. The ambassadors and governor-general's ambassador kind of thing, to travel around the world and assist various ambassadors and director generals in times of trouble or when they are, say, on a break or whatever. Basically like a roving ornament. Exactly the same thing that the Queen did with Andrew when he left the military, but just not in the financial sector. Unfortunately, the British ambassadors and governor-generals were mostly against it, okay? And I think at the time so was the government. Charles then tried to create a position for Harry in Canada, but that also did not work. And that is a story for a whole different video. So time passed, Harry and Meghan made up, broke up, made up again, blah, blah, blah. But they, or she, mostly, lost the Netflix deal, the Spotify deal, the Lemonada deal. Harry's book was good while it lasted, as was everything else he tried and failed in. And of course, everything Meghan tried and failed in. Now, according to all indications, the relationship is damaged to the point of no return. There are stories and stories and stories and even more stories. Things like that Meghan's past is catching up with her, her coldness towards her father had turned her into the Wicked Witch, a bad omen in Hollywood, and then of course the money. We know that in places like Montecito and Hollywood, it is a case of if the money runs out, so does the love. It is also alleged that Meghan already has a new love of her life, okay? But there's no further information on that one yet. But where the actual bombshell comes in is that I have received information that James Holt and Liam Maguire had been secretly working on putting together new charitable ventures for Harry outside of Archwell, and that it has the full approval of Buckingham Palace and the King. And that is indeed the most important part. It is outside Archwell and it has the approval of the monarch and the monarchy. Okay, so James Holt, who incidentally will still stay and help at Invictus and Travelers, had connected with very specific initiatives which I believe Harry will become more and more and more involved with in 2026, and which will see him maybe live in the United Kingdom and travel to the United States and Australia, or he will live in the United States and travel to Britain and Australia mostly. I think he will travel to other places as well, but I think those three countries, the United States, Britain and Australia, will be the main focus. So I don't exactly know which will be his permanent base. I have a feeling it will be Britain. And I think he will live in England because it will be the closest to Liam, James and David. And maybe they will rope, what's her name, Beth, whatever, that other PR person, perhaps they will rope her in. But before we speculate on that specifically, let's first face facts and see what James Holt had been working on, say, the last 7 or 6 months, okay, and with whom, because that is very important. Now, for the last, say, 10 months, James had been specifically promoting Hope Labs' Responsible Technology Youth Power Fund, something right down Harry's alley. not so much Meghan's, because she would like to put her kids on social media, but definitely Harry's alley, okay? He has also drawn Harry into the Hope Labs Young Futures Awards. James Holt had also promoted and dealt with Dr. Zach Zeitler, the global director of research into male behavior, including things like suicide among men, aggression, etc., at the University of Melbourne, Australia. Harry and Dr. Zeitler have appeared together at events, among which the Movember event and discussion in October 2025. And it was all put together by James Holt. With Harry and Meghan's Parents Network, which has now been incorporated with Parents Together, and thus effectively out of their hands, James Holt has brought Harry in contact with Parents Rise, which is a fairly large and international advocacy group, okay? And as I said, international, represented in a number of countries, among which Australia. And then there is Dr. Gautam Raju, the Global Director for Policy and Advocacy at the Movember Foundation, who also collaborated with Harry on a number of men's health initiatives. Dr. Raju is also from Australia. And then it appears that Harry will also follow in his mother's footsteps with HIV/AIDS initiatives, all which James Holt has been working on behalf of Harry. And again, it appears outside of Archwell. So it is very clear to me, at least, that there is a new path being mapped out for Harry. How long it will take to establish it, I don't know, because to a certain extent, a lot of it is done in secrecy. So, okay, with all the information I now have and all the corroborating paperwork and articles, here is my opinion and or prediction. Now, do you guys remember when Harry went to Luanda for a solo trip in July 2025 to champion landmine clearance with the Halo Trust? Do you remember that? Well, it has come to my attention that the embassy in Luanda, the British embassy, provided for Harry while he was there, and that bills for the visit were sent to the Foreign Office in the United Kingdom. So what would that visit be classified as, in your opinion? Yes, you are indeed right. The visit to Luanda was classified a diplomatic visit. So although I'm saying that what is to follow is my prediction, at the very least it is an educated, researched guess. I think that Harry's so-called crimes in the United States will be paid off by the king, I guess, with British taxpayer money and with the full knowledge of Sir Two-Tier Keir, and that Harry will get, if he does not already have it, his IPP status back. And finally, that in 2026 Harry will be the King's representative outside of the United Kingdom. Now, I do not think that it will be announced officially, and unless we go delve deep and follow the money, we will initially not even know about it. I heard that Harry's so-called comeback is based on a combination of techniques which were used as PR for Diana. For instance, the brave fight against HIV/AIDS and landmines. Also techniques used to restore Camilla's image, namely real tear-jerker causes like abuse against women and children, children who lost their parents, like Scotty's Little Soldiers, suicide prevention, and maybe Harry will try his luck with veteran issues again. And all without a formal announcement from Buckingham Palace. We'll just slowly get used to seeing Harry around again. You know what they say about boiling a frog. The same will apply. I think by the end of 2026, Harry will be fully on his own trajectory, but under the auspices of the monarchy, and so entrenched that it will make William look like a mean ogre should he try to kick Harry out or take his titles. And just by the way, for the royal rota and royal so-called experts, whom I heard talking gaga goo goo the other day, Meghan will not lose her Duchess title as a result of a divorce. Not for as long as Harry is the Duke of Sussex, or she gets remarried, or the King issues a letters patent to the United Kingdom government. Sarah Ferguson, for instance, remained the Duchess of York until Andrew was stripped, and Lady C, for instance, remained Lady Colin Campbell because she did not remarry. The same will apply to Meghan, and that is one of the reasons why we are advocating for Harry's titles to be stripped. Now, I'm very hesitant to make a prediction with regards to Harry and Meghan's relationship or their marriage, but I do think and feel that the relationship is overdone, okay? But whether there will be an actual divorce, I'm not so sure. Maybe it could even indeed be a huge scam, making it look like it's over, and once Harry is safely back in the royal fold, she will pop up. Ta-da! Here I am! Or maybe Charles has made a few deals. I do think Charles had promised Starmer that he will not ask for or enforce an election until 2027. And maybe he also promised to pay Harry's debts in the United States in exchange for there not being any repercussions to Harry's wrongdoings. Let's put it that way. Anyway, guys, that's it from me for now. Please take good care of yourselves. Stay strong. I do not believe that 2026 will be a fantastically marvelous year. I think it might even get worse, but it will get better. Okay? I promise you, it can only get better. All right, so let's hang in there. Let's stay strong. Let's stay together, and let's support each other. All right? Okay, and then I'll see you on the next one. Bye.